Hello, dear friends. Here we are. This is the Medium's Harvest. And this is the book by Emmanuel through Xavier telling us about mediumship and breaking down important highlights of the book, the Medium's Book. A true tribute, making us feel the scripture. It's not enough to know. You know enough. Enough to change your life. Me too. And I'm not saying this in arrogance, just saying that the things that we do is enough. They are enough for us to transform completely. So why is Emmanuel bringing this book to us? He's bringing it to us to make us feel it. There is a chapter that is going to be the foundation for chapter 59 of the Medium's Harvest. In the Medium's book, 32 chapters, 350 items. Kardec has a chapter, which is 27, titled Contradictions and Deceptions. And you may be asking, what is this all about? Let me begin it and share with you when he starts this chapter. Okay. It says here, excuse me, the pages. The opponents of Spiritism do not hesitate to point out that its adherents do not agree amongst themselves, they do not even share the same beliefs. In other words, they contradict one another. We will begin by stating these contradictions which certain individuals make such a big noise about, which are usually more apparent than real. Okay? You see how Kardec was such a researcher and an educator. Sometimes people come and say, oh, people ask me these questions about Spiritism, and I don't know the answer. Kardec has already answered similar questions and much more. And if we read the books, we'll know how to talk to people. If we study them, not to debate, but to give them an answer. I don't need to create it from scratch in reinventing the wheel. I remember when I was traveling to San Diego in the year 2002, invited by the friend Daniel Benjamin to speak about Spiritism. It was the first time that they had a Spiritist talk in that area to the public. And I remember somebody coming to me and saying, I want to research the spirit phenomena like Allan Kardec did. And I said, why? Because I want to see what he saw. Well, but if you read the books, you don't need it. Scientifically, I don't need to repeat the experiments that Newton did to understand the first laws of physics. I don't need to repeat the experiments of every single researcher to validate it. There is an inner mechanism of validation, and we continue it. We move to another level. Spiritism is also science. I don't need to validate the teachings by repeating the same research, but I expand it. And the Spirits told through Kardec that Spiritism as a science would allow expansion because knowledge is unlimited. And there are endless features to be understood about what? The objective of Spiritism is what? Is a science. It studies the origin of spirits, the nature of spirits, the destiny of spirits, and the relationship with the corporeal world. Spirits meaning you and I. So when I read Spiritism, I'm reading about myself, where I've come from. As a spirit, who am I, my nature, and the destiny, what lies ahead of me? What's the point of making efforts to be a better person if the body's gonna perish? Well, life doesn't end there. So understanding the implications and how we as spirits work in this material world and do these internships in matter. I as a spirit do this internship. You know internships. You graduate, and before you graduate you do internships to gain experience, to gain knowledge. Same for the spirit. Through each kingdom, in each body, in each species, the spirit is acquiring knowledge and experience. Knowledge and experience. Knowledge and experience. Vibrating at higher levels. Vibrating at different frequencies. Connecting, associating, and fulfilling the Creator's will. So, in this chapter, Kardec is reasoning our understanding of this interaction between two realms through mediumship and demystifying many aspects that for the lay person may be contradictory and may come from prejudices inside of the person, especially the person that doesn't understand. So let me read to you this paragraph 3 from item 301 in chapter 27 of the Medium's book, because that item is our reference from which Emmanuel expands and brings to us new awareness. Kardec then asked the question to the spirits through the mediums: why is it that when serious spirits are with certain individuals, they seem to accept ideas and even prejudices that they warn against when they are with others? The answer of the spirits: we must make ourselves understood. If someone has a well-established conviction about some doctrine, even if erroneous, we must lead them away from it, but little by little. Mamma mia! Forgive me for the expression, but this is enlightening, huh? The spirits are not violent. They don't hurt people's conscience. They don't see people worshipping a stone and say, "You silly people, what is in your mind? You're worshipping a stone?" They're like, okay. They worship a stone, and then one day, all the commandments in a stone. I'm not saying that they were worshipping the stone, but we were at a time in which lots of, superstitions happened. And then in a stone, Moses became the medium of a revelation, the first revelation, the one that brings to us the foundation of the divine justice. So, little by little, we must lead them away from erroneous doctrine. That is why we often employ their own terms and seem to go along with their ideas, so that they do not suddenly take offense and stop learning from us. The spirits are educators, the good spirits. You see, they don't come to people who believe in... we don't understand the mechanisms of many things. Let's say somebody has a statue of an angel, and they firmly believe that by praying in front of it, they are going to gain some form of protection, etc. How is a superior spirit gonna come and be violent, disdaining the person, saying, what is this? Are you crazy? No, they listen to the prayer. They don't care at this moment that this person is using a material statue to connect higher. They understand that this is a step before other levels of feeling the connection with God. There's nothing wrong in the sense of the intention. The mechanism is wrong. It's a fallacy. But the intention is the same as somebody who doesn't need a statue and is praying, feeling, God, I love you. I need your help. Same as, please, St. Francis, before the statue, I need your help. The intention is the same. For the good spirits, that's all that matters. If they don't listen to the person, they're not gonna be able to guide the person. So it's like parents and children, educators and children. I cannot come to a 3-4-year-old and say, you're not really Wonder Woman, did you know it? If the child says, I'm Wonder Woman, okay, all right, so be it. We're not going to say no and fight with the child. What's the harm? Right? Moreover, it is not proper to sharply attack. It's not proper to sharply attack preconceptions, which would be a good way for us not to be listened to. This is why spirits often speak in terms of the opinions of those who listen to them, in order to gradually try to lead them to the truth. They adapt their language to these people as you would do if you were a skillful speaker. A skillful speaker. That is also why they will not speak to a Chinese person or a Muslim in the same way they would to a French person or a Christian. They would obviously be rejected. He's talking about the wisdom of cultural competency. The spirits are culturally competent, the high spirits. They know where we're coming from. They know our limits, temporary limits, and they work with it, guiding us to the next steps of evolution without smashing us because we're limited temporarily. So they don't shock us saying, no, you don't need to go to John of God. There is healing everywhere. No. He's a healing medium. You trust that mechanism. Go. We'll be there with you. As Jorge Godinho Neri, the current president of the Brazilian Spiritist Federation, says, in an analogy, if a physician is walking in the forest and somebody is hurt and the person needs surgery, and all that the physician finds is a rusty knife, there's no choice. You're going to use a rusty knife. We're the instruments. The spirits are going to work with us. They're not going to smash us. They don't repress. The good spirits do not repress. So, therapeutic question for us. Do you feel shame or guilt when you think of the higher spirits of your guardian angel? Because if you do, you don't need to. I don't need it either. Because they do not play these aggressions with us. They're kind. They're soothing. They're caring. They're not impositional. One should not see as a contradiction what it is usually only a developmental phase of truth. a developmental phase of truth. Only this paragraph 3 in item 301 would make all the orthodox spiritists quiet themselves when they feel the need to persecute those who are not bringing the purity of it all. Please read this. Print it out and distribute it in the centers. We don't need to defend anything. The high spirits know what's going on. We don't need to create a list of bad spiritist books, good spiritist books, bad spiritist speakers, good spiritist speakers. Why? Because for the good spirits, that list doesn't exist. And I remember one day visiting John of God in 2005 for the first time. I was brought in there by an American friend, Amy Bianc, who lives in Chicago, Illinois, and I owe great deal to her. And visiting John of God out of research and respect, I remember coming back and talking to Divaldo. I said, Divaldo, you know, he's really a medium. I said, yes, he is. And he's doing the work, said Divaldo, that many spiritists who are living outside of Brazil are not doing. Because people need to go to Brazil to find out about spiritism. You know why? Because they speak English there, though it's in Brazil. Everything is English, Portuguese, to say the least. So we talk, and they have even people who give lectures in English there about spiritism. So you go there searching for healing, and you leave getting to know spiritism, giving the tool to know our origin, nature, destiny, and what we're doing in the physical realm. So in that regard, the spirits, they consider developmental phases, and people think that by keeping a certain boxed in dynamic of a spiritist center is going to be better than really opening up culturally, adapting culturally to where we're in, and respecting the developmental phase of the truth. Right, sunshine? That's exactly what happened to me at John of God's. You see, and thanks to that, you're here. Thank God. Thanks to John of God and the good spirits. Right? So, we cannot be that prejudiced. And Kardec wraps up this by saying, one should not see as contradiction what is usually only a developmental phase of truth. All spirits have their mission assigned by God, and they accomplish it according to the conditions they consider proper for benefiting those who receive their communications. So let's listen to this. All spirits have their mission assigned by God, meaning you and I too. Oh, God has assigned to you and to me, to all of us, a mission. But Vanessa, I don't know. Well, that's the beauty of it all. We'll find out. As we research, as we think, meditate, and do good works. What does Emmanuel tell us in regard to this striking explanation of the spirits to Kardec's beautiful question? What a wise question. And the answer is supreme. You know, in science we say by the nature of question you measure the far-reached intelligence of the person. But by the quality of the answer, you measure the wisdom of the person. Here we see Kardec and the good spirits working at the same level. Adriana Sanchez Monteiro is saying, perfect subject, I needed to hear this to take the fear away from some upcoming work I want to do here in Orlando. Beautiful, Adriana. Don't be afraid. Trust in God, right? Chapter 59. Based on this, item 301, paragraph 3 of chapter 27 of the Medium's book by Kardec, Emmanuel writes this chapter 59, Revelations and Prejudices, which was written on a meeting in August 15th, 1960. He said, often you inquire why discarnate instructors silence themselves, silence certain doctrinal themes in certain regions. Together with this or that people, they speak in reincarnation strongly, while together with others they seem to ignore it. Here they outline the grave consequences of suicide, and somewhere else it is as if they erase all references to such calamity, still considered in certain racial groupings as a point of honor. In many places, they acknowledge the observations of the phenomenon, and in others, they highlight the merits of the school. However, it is necessary to recognize that there is physical nourishment and spiritual nourishment. And as much as there are physical age and conditions, there is also spiritual age, and there are conditions. Then it is necessary to observe the gastric mechanisms and the mental mechanisms of each individual in themselves. Adult feeding should not be given to children, and the artificial feeding of the pacifier is not offered to the adult. There are patients who need saline solution to balance themselves. There are patients who require blood transfusions to escape from starvation. And everywhere we see people who have not yet learned to reason for themselves, cleaning ideas from those who direct them in the manner of fetuses that cannot maneuver organs in formation, waiting for sustenance. Through endosmosis in maternal cloister, where they are embodied. Let us study the particular position of the companions of the human journey, offering them the truth dosed in love. The divine wisdom does not approve principles of violence. The earthly parents themselves wait compassionately for the growth of their children in order to deliver them to the blessings of nature, each in their own time. Nevertheless, life shows us the clear duty of fraternal tolerance, thus teaching us to respect the prejudices of others. For such reason, we do not have the obligation to either worship or praise, to propagate or to follow any prejudice. Wow. I know there are people who form WhatsApp groups in Spiritism just with the illusion that by connecting to XYZ people, they are creating a new inquisitory formation. And they were assigned by God to keep the Spiritist movement pure. We wonder where they got that illusion from. Because according to Kardec and Emmanuel, clearly stated, we do not have the obligation to either worship or praise, to propagate or to follow any prejudice. But they are not violent either. to spend, I would say, waste time meeting, bashing people is a non-Christian attitude, is a non-Christian Spiritist attitude. If any board of directors of any center, if any board of directors of any Spiritist organization or federation dare to gather together to bash, to put down, to prohibit, to make prejudiced decisions, they are not aligned with the Spiritist teachings. So you and I, and anybody who is a Spiritist, don't need to be worried about it. But Vanessa, there are people who are using Spiritism. They're saying the name of Spiritism, but they're not doing it. But that's a problem between God and them. They have guardian angels. Why their guardian angels allow them to take such decisions? Because they're counting on us to block them out? You think their guardian angels need you and I to tell them that they are wrong? No. If people want to go to the corner, do something else and say, this is a Spiritism, God bless them. But Vanessa, it's wrong. It's heresy. No, we're no longer there. Thank you. That personality of the church in the past is dead. I no longer want it. Do you? Today at the Spiritist Society of Virginia, we had friends giving talks about reincarnation. And one of the questions that Mentor Joseph asked at the end was, are we truly reincarnated? Because majority of us have a new body, but psychologically, we're the same old. To reincarnate is what Jesus said, to be born again, and to be born again not only in the body, but to be born anew in spirit, to renew ourselves, to create new conditionings, counter-condition the unhealthy ones, renew ourselves, improve our perceptions. How do we do it? Not by punishing ourselves, by loving ourselves, our divine potential, and boosting the new muscles of new virtues. But there are people who reincarnate from previous mistaken religious policing. They are now in Spiritism, and they continue the same inquisitory, the Inquisition, the Crusades. I may talk to a friend and say, I don't believe this is the direction, but I'm not going to create a movement against that person. Our guide and model, Jesus, has he ever created a plot against anybody? But there are people who do not create a plot face to face. They create plots in a very coward manner, very coward on the behind the scenes, in very passive aggressive ways, pretending that people don't exist, that they are not doing good works, isolating people. Those are non-Christian attitude. If we incur in those mistakes, we are not really following through. So, our dear Emmanuel begins this message by talking to us directly. Let us observe how he writes this dissertation. Often you inquire why discarnate instructions silence certain doctrinal themes in certain regions of the earth. Why Dr. Bezerra de Menezes, the doctor of the poor who is the leader of this energy medicine in the application in the field of Spiritism, why does he also visit non-Spiritist meetings and work there? Why? Because the good is everywhere. So if somebody from a church, from a different religion, from a different invites you to go and watch, go watch. Go see, because the good is everywhere. Can't be only with us. What about the billions of people that are not even Christians? We often say, the Christ Consoler has come. But what about the people who are not Christians nowadays? Where have the Christ Consoler come for them? Good question, huh? That's a homework for us. Okay? And Silvio Otero is saying, yes, there is good everywhere. Thank you, Silvia. We need to reinforce it. There's good everywhere. So, the high spirits, they are not going to violently come and say, you guys are wrong, those are right, bad boy, bad, bad, bad. They are not like this. So Rudy says, keep up the courage as you struggle, no matter what the situation is, from Happy Life. Thank you so much, Rudy. How perfectly fitting. And he says here, the physical nourishment, the spiritual nourishment. Kardec Radio, spiritual nourishment. Here we are. But we have different programs as well, according to people's interest and pace in life. That's why we have more than 3,000 podcasts, more than 30 hosts. Why? Because people need different types of food. And there you have it. And Emmanuel is saying, everywhere we see people who have not yet learned to reason for themselves. They claim that people explain to them, what can we do? They wait for sustenance, like a baby that needs to be fed directly. And so be it. So what does he propose? That we study the particular position of the companions of the human journey, offering them the truth dosed in love. So he's giving us the recipe. What to do, he says. Observe people and their moment of evolution. Give them some form of truth that is balanced with love. Sometimes, let me say this particularly, I go places and I give talks. Sometimes the same talk, title, but depending on the public, different depth. Natural. Not for me, but the good spirits, they say, no, let's tone down this, let's reinforce that. The needs, it's not on us. We need to be sensitive, what we call culturally, spiritually sensitive. Homework. Are we culturally sensitive to people's lives in the spiritist sense of the world? That's our homework. To measure our level of cultural sensitivity. And it's not about countries, races, etc. It's about spiritual level, the spiritual hierarchy. Where are we? We cannot treat everybody alike. But he says, offer the truth, balanced, dosed with love. I'm learning this, because sometimes I say the truth and it hurts. Doesn't it happen to you? Or sometimes we don't say and we just love and we don't tell the truth. We need to balance. It cannot be raw truth, raw love. It has to be a compound. Truth, love. As if you go to a compound pharmacy and say, for this person we need 80% truth, 20% love. 50% truth, 50% love. I'm just saying in an analogy. Not saying we're not going to be truthful, but we need to measure. And the good spirits do the same. That's why we advance and we go forward. And sometimes we say, why didn't my mentor tell me before? I've been searching for this answer my whole life. And you think the mentor was going to spoil your growth by spoon feed you the truth? That would probably be blinding. No. Sunshine is saying Paul and Barnabas were sensitive in their presentation of the good news. Exactly. Culturally feeding. Culturally feeding. The way Spiritism is spread out in Brazil fits for Brazil. Not necessarily fits for the United States of America. Not the content, the wrapping of the gift, the presentation. We needed to see where people are coming from to adjust. And not necessarily being born in the United States gonna give us the answer. It's an inner mechanism of cultural sensitivity. And how do I become more culturally sensitive? By getting to know of the context, the cultural background of the group that I'm interacting with, and learn with it. It may take years to figure it out, but in trials and errors with the guidance of the good spirits, we're going to go forward. But there's a lot of prejudice. One of them that I've seen, which is mistaken, years ago somebody told me, you know, I don't think the American people are prepared for Spiritism. They're too materialistic. Okay, so I'm gonna give you a plane ticket. So you go to certain wealthy areas of Brazil, and then you come back to compare, and you tell me if there is any difference. And you'll be surprised of how much generosity exists in the hearts of Americans. And you know why the current bombardment towards the American identity? Because it's in the plan of the Christ that the United States of America, North America, is the brain of the planet. But the forces of darkness are trying to create opposition by destroying the identity, the beautiful dream, freeing, fraternal identity of the American promise. There is a promise for each nation, and for the United States of America there is this particularity. But we need to rescue it. We need to rescue it. If we read On the Way to the Light by Emmanuel, we see Emmanuel talking about that. We have no doubt that our American family is as human as any human on the earth. Not more, no less. But with a particular task to be fulfilled. And we cannot deter it. And we need to care. Sylvia Otero is saying, no, we are individually different no matter where we're from. Yep. We are different, but collectively, we're all the same. Right? And he says, divine wisdom does not approve principles of violence. And the beauty of it all is, for many years, a neuroscientist named Franz de Waal at Emory University in Atlanta, he studied violence to understand where it came from, especially after the Second World War. He wanted to understand where cruelty came from, and he was researching primates, which are the closest to humans. But at some point, he asked himself, if violence is generated through an inner instinct, is reconciliation, the counterpart, the peacemaking skills, also physiologically and phylogenetically transposed, meaning do we have this reconciliation, peacemaking skills inbuilt inside of us genetically? And to the surprise of the neuroscientific community, after years of studying it, he concluded, amongst other things, that even in primates, after a struggle, a squabble between primates, they may kiss each other, they may hug each other. There is a beautiful study when he showed that a mother of two daughters who were also young adults and had their siblings, they were, fighting, arguing their own way. And then the mother calls them and in their own language boosts them to make peace. That's primates. And there are humans who vouch to me that they are incapable of forgiving, reconciling, and making peace. That's a sign of how much of an imbalance we're experiencing, because we're far from our own nature. We have that divine seed inside of us. Okay? Karina Alice is saying, can you repeat the name of the author of this study? Franz de Waal. W-A-A-L. He has a Facebook page, and you can Google him for his Emory page and the studies. He's phenomenal. The studies are groundbreaking. Franz de Waal. W-A-A-L. Thank you, Karina, for asking, okay? So it's beautiful, because how can we dare to say we're not able to forgive, we're not able to reconcile, if primates can do it without the awareness that we have? Right? So violence exists, but divine wisdom does not approve of it. So much so that we have this inbuilt mechanism of peace, as much as we have the mechanism for relaxation. People talk about stress, but instead of talking about stress, talk about your inbuilt relaxation mechanism. Through your breath, we can boost it up, says Dr. Heber Benson at Harvard. 3 decades of study. Let's talk about this and seek the good in our own physiology. The earthly parents themselves wait compassionately for the growth of their children to deliver them to the blessings of nature. Life shows us the clear duty of fraternal tolerance, teaching us to respect the prejudices of others. So when people say Don't talk to that spiritist or to that spiritist author. Don't read that book, because that, please, where's our fraternal tolerance? Where is our respect? We want to be respected. Let us respect. Isn't that exciting that we have inside of us the capacity to make peace? We just need to allow it to blossom by rooting ourselves into this to-do-good mode. And this is how, my friends, we wrap up this chapter today. Tomorrow, God willing, we will be back together. And when we come back, we're gonna study chapter 60. It's been 2 months together every night. And Emmanuel titles it, The Problem Within You. And he says, teaser, huh? You're gonna love this chapter. Yes, the Creator does not condemn his creatures, but he corrects the maladjusted ones through his laws. God in the earth today promotes through the Spiritist doctrine all the resources necessary for ourselves towards the sacred mission of mediumship, sacred mission of Spiritism. I'm not gonna cry, but I feel very moved. Do you? Come back tomorrow, because we're gonna receive more revelations, more boosting of our discernment, more love. Big hug to all of you. Let us meditate and work together. Thank you, friends.